All right. Hi, everyone. So happy fifth week of class. I can't believe it. We only have one more week after this week, so 2 weeks in total left. I don't know where the summer went, but I'm hoping that you've been enjoying the different content and all the things, especially the exercises we've been doing in this class. So, this set of notes, I'm going to get you through the last couple chapters of the book, and we'll continue with our writing and some fun final projects to kind of culminate everything up for the summer. We're looking at chapter 26, and these are a couple extensions of some of these chapters that are about all the different variant themes in poetry, particularly the perennial themes which we've been looking at. Those themes that very much dominate a lot of different poetry. And of course, these themes, love is such a broad theme, and as we've learned, love can be broken down into so many different types of category within poetry. So, chapter 26, Kawit entitles Into the Dazzling Void and writing about the natural world. There's a beautiful poem by Linda Gregg to start us off here called Praising Spring. The day is taken by each thing and grows complete. I go out and come in and go out again, confused by a beauty that knows nothing of delay, rushing like fire. All things move faster than time and make a stillness thereby. My mind leans back and smiles, having nothing to say. Even at night, I go out with a light and look at the growing. I kneel and look at one thing at a time, a white spider on a peony bud. I have nothing to give and make a poor servant, but I can praise the spring. Praise this wilderness that does not heed the hour, the doe that does not stop at dark but continues to grow all night long, the beauty in every degree of flourishing. Violets lift to the rain, and the brook gets louder than ever. The old German farmer is asleep, and the flowers go on opening. There are stars. Mint grows high. Leaves bend in the sunlight as the rain continues to fall. That's a beautiful poem. And as you can see from the poem here, how it talks about, it's all about letting the natural world overwhelm one's spirit. So basically, I love to think of this chapter and this part of poetry as really paying close attention literally to the natural world around you, actually taking note of nature. And nature does not have to mean in the sense like, oh, let me go out into the woods or anything like that. Literally just taking note of your setting that you're in, letting the world kind of come to you and speak to you that way. Because as you can see in the poem above here, it's so simplistic, but as Kawit talks about, the narrator is astonished by sort of the unending motion and impermanence of the world, meaning that things keep going on, things keep moving, things keep growing, blooming, happening. And obviously as people, we, as does the narrator, we keep going outside, we can't get enough of the world, and we are confused, delighted, and in awe. So I think we can take away so much from just looking at what is around us. And particularly when Cowett says the paradox is made explicit when the poet tells us that all things move faster than time and make a stillness thereby. Lots of details in the poems. The white spider and the peony blood, as Kawit says, they populate the poem with real creatures, real flowers, real stars. So the sort of compare and contrast with both sides there is really, really beautiful. And of course, if you're looking at the internal sound echoes, it looks something like this: day, taken, delay, say, rain, and so forth as you go on. So this is pretty cool for, it's not a concisely very, very long poem. But I think the biggest thing to sort of get out of this is that you don't have to be in a natural environment to praise the natural world around you. You don't have to be in this field of peonies. You don't have to be in a field of wildflowers. You don't have to be in the middle of a forest. Simple things such as Cowett talks about the houseplant thriving in midwinter, a bowl of fruit on the table, potato in the cupboard, whatever it might be. You can find natural beauty around you no matter where you are. And I think that's pretty cool to take note of yourself and then write about too, and kind of see how you pick those pieces apart here. So here is a Ginsberg poem right here, this excerpt. It's a translation of the sung poet Suchenspa, Ginsberg's poem Returning to the Country for a Brief Visit. I do not know who is hoarding all this rare work. Old one, that dog stretches stiff-legged, soon he'll be underground. Spring's first fat bee buzzes yellow over the new grass and dead leaves. What's this little brown insect walking zigzag across the sunny white page of Su Tongpo's poem? Fly away, tiny mite, even your life is tender. I lift the book and blow you into the dazzling void. Such a fun little beautiful poem here that celebrates, yeah, both pieces of sort of the natural world, also with what's actually going on here in sort of the time frame. It's taken from a whole other another perspective. So you acknowledge life, you acknowledge the physicality, but also the naturalistics too. And a couple other poems that, pay attention to those very small details, small people, small things in our lives is The Meeting of Mavericks that he includes. And also looking at the natural world that surrounds us. And, it's really important, I think, as people and especially as poets, that this is a great word that he uses, which is empathize with all of creation here. Our ability to empathize with all of creation is very important as writers, but also as people and human beings too. This is a fun poem that he uses here. Cat puke and flies poem. All right. I feed Marcello a can of liver and chicken. He bolts it down too fast as usual. 2 minutes later, he throws up on the back patio. The first fly shows up within seconds, ecstatic over life's bounty. Within minutes, the word's out somehow, the brothers and sisters coming in fast. The sun creeps along the cement floor. Pretty soon, half the cat puke is in light, the other in shadow like sunrise on a volcanic island. At least 30 flies have gathered by now, walking around and eating what they're walking around. I'm moving closer, such organization and grace, no fuss, no fighting. There's obviously always enough for everyone in the fly world, and plenty of time to get off a quickie with your neighbor. I'm now on my hands and knees, my face within inches of calm, feeding of at least 50 flies, give or take arrivals and departures. No one seems to notice me, the sun glinting off their emerald thoraxes and through their purple wings. So definitely a fun poem here, but how awesome some of the phrasing that's used in here. We're going to talk a lot about the tone of voice, tone, diction, having that range, the offhandedness of the narrator, and the way that he describes sort of the flies feasting on this. You also have an example from Walt Whitman, of course, looking at the creatures of the sea in this poem. And we then get to sort of take part in how he's thinking about all of creation here. And in this poem, The World Below the Brine. The world below the brine, forests at the bottom of the sea, the branches and leaves, sea lettuce, vast lichens, strange flowers and seeds, the thick tangle, openings, and pink turf. Different colors, pale gray and green, purple, white, and gold, the play of light through the water. Dumb swimmers there among the rocks, coral, gluten, grass, rushes, and the ailment of the swimmers, sluggish existences grazing there suspended, or slowly crawling close to the bottom. The sperm whale at the surface, blowing air and spray, or disporting with his flukes. The leaden-eyed shark, the walrus, the turtle, the hairy sea leopard, and the stingray. Passions there, wars, pursuits, tribes, sight in those ocean depths, breathing that thick breathing air as so many do. The change thence to sight there, and to the subtle air breathed by beings like us who walk the spear. The change onward from Mars to that of beings who walk other spears. So that's a very cool, very, very naturalistic approach here where, as Kohut says, it's hard. A lot of poets can't do how well Whitman kind of merges together musical grace and dramatic power. His poems are very well organized, not just this one, but a lot of them. He begins with the life forms at the bottom of the sea, the colors, the objects, the vegetation, even when the swimmers are moving around, and then he moves sort of from smaller to larger in the poem. And that's really cool to see. You move from the bottom of the sea as you're going upwards to the surface. So very much as the poem is trying to reveal a lot of these details to you, they come out in small amounts. Of course, you can also look at other poems about the natural world that very much represent an empathy. It's very much out there on the forefront. This one, A Bright Day, has a very traditional structure, a lot of rhymed iambic quatrains, and those are sometimes called heroic quatrains. So I'll read the excerpt here. My windows now are giant drops of dew. The common stones are dancing in my eyes. The light is winged and panting, and the floor is fluttering with a little fall arise. See while they shoot the sun with singing larks, how those broad meadows sparkle and rejoice. Where can the cuckoo hide in all this light, and still remain unseen, and but a voice? Shall I be mean when all this light is mine? Is anything unworthy of its place? Call for the rat, and let him share my joy, and sit beside me here to wash his face. So again, you can hear a lot more of that structure, the scheme going in. And it's very cool to see how much these very, as Kawhi says, they're very spiritual poems. They're structured very spiritually, and they have a sort of pattern that they all kind of have in common. And I feel like it's very much the slow reveal through tone, through diction, and through the voice of the narrator too. So good points that you can think about. As Carwit says, though all the poems in the chapter are about the natural world, that doesn't mean that you have to, look, when you look at the observations, they don't require you to have, very specialized knowledge or experience. You don't have to have been there to understand. You don't have to have been there to sort of know what's going on, and you don't have to have been there to empathize or react. So that's also very important. I've read some beautiful pieces, I love reading and looking about, a lot of our natural parks in the United States. And I've only been to a couple, the big ones. So I do rely a lot on these poems to kind of bring me into those natural perspectives like that too. So, and it doesn't mean just because you live in a big city, doesn't mean that you can't write about nature in a different way. Just because you live in a certain geographic area doesn't mean you can't write about nature. So there's a very cool walking meditation exercise here. I think that's a lot of fun. There's very much poems in praise of something, which we're going to focus on this week for one of our exercises. I love the idea of focusing so minutely. You can also do an inventory approach, kind of like Walt Whitman's piece too. So I think this could be a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun to also pay close attention to something that we often very much overlook.